Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a single kind of elegant theory, one that attempts to link everything from, say, the gradual silent death of your phone battery to the swirling anxieties in your mind. Or, okay, picture the mesmerizing, precise landing of a drone on a ship that's tossing in rough seas.
Right, incredibly complex.
And then compare that to, well, the seemingly simple act of an ice cube melting into your drink. What if a fundamental, maybe universal logic could tie together these wildly different things from physics, biology, neuroscience, and even, human behavior and corporate strategy?
It sounds almost too grand, doesn't it?
It really does. But that's the grand, ambitious promise of the free energy principle, or FEP. And, well, it's what we're diving to today.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how this deep dive will let us uncover the FEP's hidden fingerprints. Well, pretty much everywhere you look.
Everywhere, really.
Yeah, it's not just some niche academic idea stuck in a lab. Its insights resonate really deeply in areas like therapy, cutting-edge robotics, even your personal productivity. And corporate boardrooms, too, deciding strategy. So our mission today is to try and unravel this incredibly bold scientific attempt. We want to help you grasp its core ideas, not through, dry equations.
Please no.
Right. But through vivid stories, relatable analogies, and practical implications that you can genuinely feel and understand. We'll be navigating this complex landscape using insights from sources like the Free Energy Principle, a beginner's guide, which takes a really accessible, metaphor-rich approach.
Okay, good. Metaphors help.
Definitely. We're basically here to give you that shortcut, to being well-informed, making sure you get those satisfying aha moments without getting bogged down in information overload.
And believe me, there are some truly mind-bending aha moments waiting for us. But to really appreciate the revolutionary insights of the FEP, we kind of need to start with something foundational.
Where are we starting?
Something you've likely encountered before. The second law of thermodynamics. This is our warm-up, you could say. The essential backstory that sets the stage for why the free energy principle isn't just interesting, but, well, maybe absolutely necessary to understand how life, and really any self-organizing system, operates in our universe.
Exactly. That's the perfect starting point, because when students first encounter the second law of thermodynamics, it often arrives with this certain gravitas. It's framed as this almost inevitable truth about the universe. In a closed system, entropy never decreases.
Right, entropy, that word.
Yeah, and entropy itself can be a bit of a chameleon, The meaning kind of shifts depending on the context. It's often simplified as a measure of disorder, but well, that can be a bit misleading.
How so?
More precisely, think of it as a measure of how spread out energy and matter are within a system. Or in an information theoretic sense, you could think of it as a measure of missing information. It's this fundamental tendency for everything to smooth out, to become uniform, less distinct.
Okay, imagine your freshly folded laundry. You spent all that time organizing it into neat stacks, right? But leave those shirts on a chair for a few days, and without any conscious effort, they inevitably slump into this, rumpled pile.
Yeah, happens to the best of us.
Or picture a pristine ice cube, cold and organized, floating in a glass of warm water. It doesn't spontaneously get colder or more structured, does it?
No, quite the opposite.
It melts. It spreads its chill throughout the water until both are at the same kind of lukewarm temperature. And that steaming cup of coffee you just poured?
Yes.
It doesn't stay hot forever. It cools down, diffusing its thermal energy into the surrounding air until it reaches room temperature. These are all incredibly relatable stories of gradients, these differences flattening out.
Right. Differences in temperature, pressure, concentration.
They just dissipate until everything becomes uniform, quiet, and honestly a little boring. That's the universe just left to its own devices.
And to make it even more concrete, let's use that classic soda can metaphor. It illustrates this principle beautifully. Imagine you've just pulled a cold, fizzy can of soda from the fridge.
Okay, got it. Cold can.
You pop the tab, and there's that immediate, satisfying hiss, followed by the sight of countless bubbles fizzing up and popping on the surface. That delightful effervescence, that's carbon dioxide gas. It was trapped under high pressure inside the can, and now it's eagerly escaping into the lower pressure environment of the room.
Right, the pressure difference drives the fizz.
Exactly. That pressure difference, that gradient, is what's driving the fizz. But if you leave that can open, what happens?
It goes flat. Sadly flat.
Eventually, yeah. The soda goes flat. The fizz, the pressure, the distinct taste, all gone. That initial pressure difference, that potential for work, has been completely consumed. This is the second law of thermodynamics playing out right there in your kitchen.
Nature's relentless drive towards uniformity.
Precisely. Left entirely to itself, any closed system, and that's key, nothing can get in or out, will inevitably head towards what we call thermodynamic equilibrium. That's where entropy is maximized. Everything is spread out, uniform, and no further work, like the fizzing or the cooling, can be extracted. It's reached at the ultimate state of settled quiet.
Okay, so if this universal law dictates that everything in the cosmos is constantly heading towards this flat, uniform, maximal entropy equilibrium, how in the world do living things defy that pull?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Think about it. A towering oak tree stays a tree, growing, developing, maintaining its incredibly intricate structure year after year. A bird builds a nest, raises its young, navigates complex migrations, all while expending enormous amounts of energy.
Yeah, seemingly fighting against that tide.
And our own bodies, maintaining astonishingly complex organization, from a single specialized cell to the vast interwoven networks of our brains, keeping us thinking, feeling, moving in a world that otherwise seems utterly bent on uniformity and disorder. It seems like a profound paradox, doesn't it? How can life swim against the current of cosmic inevitability?
It absolutely does seem like a paradox, and this raises a fundamental question right at the heart of biology. If the universe is bent on uniformity, how do we, as living beings, defy that pull? How do we maintain our internal order?
So what's the answer?
The key lies in understanding that living systems are fundamentally open systems. Unlike that sealed, closed can of soda, we are in constant, dynamic, and purposeful exchange with our surroundings.
Open, meaning stuff goes in and out.
Exactly. Consider your own body. Food comes in, waste goes out, oxygen flows in, carbon dioxide flows out. Sunlight provides energy for plants, and we radiate heat away. Sensory signals continuously pour into your brain. Sights, sounds, smells, and motor commands flow out to your muscles, allowing you to interact with the world.
Constant exchange.
This ceaseless exchange of matter, energy, and crucially, information is what allows living beings to maintain what scientists call non-equilibrium steady states, or NSS.
Okay.
These are states that look stable and consistent at a macroscopic level. Your blood pressure might consistently read 2280 millimolo G, for instance, or the population of a beehive might hover steadily around 50,000 bees.
Looks stable on the surface.
Right. But beneath that apparent stability, there's a ceaseless microscopic flux. Energy is always being consumed from food, from sunlight, through your body's incredibly complex metabolism, all to maintain that apparent stability, to resist the constant entropic pull towards disorder.
So it takes work, like a juggler.
It's exactly like a juggler keeping many balls in the air. It looks stable, but it requires continuous effort, continuous energy input.
So the second law of thermodynamics isn't wrong or, obsolete for these systems. It's just maybe an incomplete picture when we're talking about active bounded systems, like a living cell, or a human brain, or even a sophisticated autonomous robot.
Precisely. The second law tells us what happens in a closed system, where nothing gets in or out. But life isn't closed. So what happens when we take that classic soda can scenario, and instead of letting it go flat freely, we introduce a critical element: boundaries.
Boundaries?
Yeah.
Like the wall of the can, or something more.
Something more dynamic. What happens when we force it to contain subsystems that cannot fully mix, but are nonetheless connected somehow? This is where our story takes a truly fascinating, maybe counterintuitive turn, and it lays the groundwork for the free energy principle.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Boundaries change things.
They change everything, and this is precisely where we begin to truly appreciate the profound implications of the free energy principle. Dr. Maxwell Ramstad, a prominent researcher in this field, uses this vivid thought experiment that really helps illustrate the conceptual leap. It seems to defy common sense at first glance.
Uh-oh. Prepare my common sense.
He asks us to imagine that soda can again, but this time, before the gas equalizes, we insert a perfectly sealed, invisible, immovable wall straight down the middle.
Okay, invisible wall. Got it. Like a force field.
Sort of. The key is, the carbon dioxide gas molecules on the left side literally cannot intermingle with the gas molecules on the right. Simple diffusion, the way the gas normally escapes and spreads out, is completely blocked.
So, my immediate intuitive thought is, okay, then the pressures on each side would just stay separate and static, like forever frozen at their initial unequal states.
Yeah.
Right. That seems logical.
That's the logical leap we'd all make. But physics, as it so often does, finds another, far more surprising and subtle way for things to connect.
Okay, what happens?
What happens is profoundly important and, yeah, counterintuitive. The constrained system develops what's called statistical synchrony, or sometimes generalized synchrony, informational coupling.
Statistical synchrony. Informational coupling, what does that mean?
It means that even though not a single molecule can cross that invisible wall, fluctuations on one side become statistically correlated with fluctuations on the other. It's like they're dancing to an unseen shared rhythm.
Dancing?
If one side of the can slightly warms up, causing its gas pressure to subtly tick up, the pressure on the other side will also subtly tick up in concert. Not because molecules moved across, but because the boundary forces each subsystem to respond to its internal dynamics in a way that statistically mirrors the other.
Whoa.
It's a profound, almost poetic statement from Dr. Ramstead. I can't mix into you, so the next best thing I can do is become like you statistically.
Okay, that is really interesting. That's the conceptual heart of the FEP. This leap from physical mixing to statistical mirroring.
Exactly. That leap is the core insight. The second law of thermodynamics describes what closed systems must do. They must flatten gradients, they must move towards maximum entropy. But the FEP describes what open boundary-bearing systems may do instead.
They may do.
They may maintain those gradients, they may resist that drift to disorder by orchestrating continuous cycles of perception and action. Cycles that tirelessly work to minimize a quantity called free energy.
So the FEP isn't about everything just spreading out. It's about how things stay together, how they remain organized and manage to thrive in this universe that wants to flatten everything.
Precisely. It's the science of persistence, of organization, enabled by these active boundaries.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about those boundaries in living things.
And the living cell is the absolute quintessential example of this. Its cell membrane, that dynamic boundary, is anything but a passive sac. It's a marvelously sophisticated structure, a lipid bilayer embedded with countless protein channels.
Right, I remember that from biology class.
That precisely regulates exactly which ions and molecules cross in and out, and when. For instance, your cells are constantly pumping sodium ions out while letting potassium ions in, creating this precise electrical gradient that's absolutely vital for nerve impulses, nutrient absorption, all cellular functions.
So it's not just a wall, it's like active gatekeeping.
Think of the cell membrane not just as a wall, but as a highly selective bouncer at an exclusive members-only club, meticulously checking credentials, only letting specific approved guests in and out and at specific times.
Okay, I like that analogy. The bouncer.
And if there's even a tiny pinprick tear in that membrane, it's often lethal. Without that perfectly maintained boundary, the cell rapidly dissolves, drifting to the same bland, uniform equilibrium as that opened can of soda going flat. Its integrity, its very existence, depends on that boundary's active maintenance.
And this incredible boundary keeping isn't just at the cell level, right? We connect this to the bigger picture. These boundaries scale up in multicellular life in really incredible and complex ways.
Absolutely. Your skin, for instance, it's not just a covering, it's a massive dynamic boundary, a multi-layered shield keeping pathogens out and precious water in.
My personal boundary with the world.
Exactly. And the blood-brain barrier, another critical, exquisitely selective boundary, preventing toxins and unwanted stuff from reaching your delicate neural tissue. It maintains a pristine environment for your thoughts. Super important.
Even within organs, microscopic capillaries meticulously restrict which cells and molecules can pass, ensuring precise nutrient delivery and waste removal while maintaining distinct functions within each organ.
It's boundaries all the way down.
Pretty much. Boundaries aren't just at the cell level. They are nested within us, almost fractal-like, at every scale. Organisms themselves might cluster into societies where legal and psychological boundaries separate individuals, defining roles, rights, interactions.
Social boundaries too.
Ecosystems too.
Yeah.
Partition niches through territorial boundaries and resource monopolies, channeling competition into a form of dynamic stability. At every single level, those fundamental gradients, whether it's nutrients, heat, information, even power, drive the natural tendency toward equilibrium. But these nested dynamic boundaries don't just block, they channel that entropic tendency.
Channel it how?
They transform it from a simple force of uniform disorder into a sophisticated mechanism that sustains incredibly complex and persistent organization. It's a beautiful, intricate dance of resistance. Wow. Okay, so that brings us back to that idea of non-equilibrium steady states, the NESS thing.
Right. These systems appear remarkably stable, like that blood pressure reading of 2080 that stays consistent for years, or a beehive population that thrives season after season. But, and this is the critical point, they require continuous energy consumption to maintain that apparent stability.
Food, sunlight, metabolism.
Yeah.
That juggling analogy again.
Exactly. It's like needing to keep pedaling a bicycle to stay upright, even if you look perfectly stable from a distance. An AS isn't some magical defiance of thermodynamics. It's an emergent behavior, a dynamic equilibrium, arising from countless microscopic processes working tirelessly, actively consuming energy, to resist entropy's pull through these active dynamic boundaries. They are always working against the entropic gradient, and that work requires fuel.
Okay, boundaries, resisting equilibrium.
Yeah.
And I think we're ready for the core idea. The free energy principle itself.
Let's dive in. The FEP makes a truly bold and sweeping assertion. Any system with a boundary, whether it's a single humble cell, a profoundly complex human brain, or even an advanced autonomous robot, must behave in such a way as to tirelessly minimize surprise.
Minimize surprise. Okay, but surprise like a birthday party. Or something else.
Hey, something else. Let's be crystal clear about what surprise means here. It's certainly not your emotional reaction to a sudden, joyful birthday party, though those can definitely be surprising.
Right.
In the precise context of the FEP, surprise is defined very specifically as the negative log probability of sensory inputs relative to the system's generative model.
Whoa, okay. Negative log probability.
Yeah.
Generative model.
Pack that a bit.
Let's do it. A generative model is simply the system's internal beliefs, its expectations, or its internal blueprint for how the world should work. It's a constantly evolving hypothesis about the world.
Like my brain expects a light to turn on when I flip the switch. Exactly. Or that water, when boiled, will get hot. If your internal model expects daylight at 8 a.m. because it's a sunny summer day, and then you wake up to find an inky black storm raging outside.
Yeah, that would be surprising.
That sensory input, the darkness, the sound of thunder, is statistically improbable given your brain's model. That significant deviation, that fundamental mismatch between what your model predicts and what your senses actually deliver, that's what causes a surprise spike. It's an error signal, a red flag going up.
So your brain's model expects one thing, the world delivers another, that's the surprise spike. It's that jarring moment when reality defies your internal predictions. And the brain, or any FEP system, is always trying to minimize those spikes to bring its internal world closer to external reality.
Always trying to minimize them. Exactly. Now, trying to compute this true surprise in real time would be practically impossible.
Why is that?
It would require perfect knowledge of the exact probability distribution of every single sensory event, given the infinitely complex, ever-changing state of the world. That's simply not feasible for any bounded real-world system. It's computationally intractable.
Okay, so how does it work then?
This is where the FEP introduces an ingenious workaround, something called variational free energy. This isn't true surprise itself, but rather a computable quantity that acts as an upper bound on surprise.
An upper bound, like a ceiling.
Sort of. Think of it like this. If you can minimize this upper bound, this variational free energy, you're implicitly minimizing the actual unknowable surprise underneath.
Ah, that's a crucial distinction. It's like being blindfolded and trying to catch a ball thrown in a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
True surprise would be knowing the precise trajectory of every gust of wind, every raindrop, the ball's exact path, totally overwhelming in real time.
Right, impossible.
But variational free energy is like saying, okay, I can't know all that, but I can minimize how often my hand misses the ball based on my best guess and the feeling of the wind and the sound of the ball whooshing past. It's pragmatic.
That's a great way to put it. It's a pragmatic, real-time approximation that allows the system to act effectively even without perfect omniscient knowledge. It's an incredibly clever computational trick. But this raises an important question. How does the system actually do that? How does it minimize something so abstract?
Yeah.
The FEP gives us two powerful complementary processes that work in constant concert to achieve this.
Okay, what are they?
We call them perceptual inference and active inference. They're not separate, isolated things, but really two sides of the same continuous coin, working together in a perpetual feedback loop. Sense, predict, act, or sense. It's a dynamic dance.
Sense, predict, act, sense. Okay, so perceptual inference.
Perceptual inference is all about updating your internal model, your beliefs, your hypotheses about the world to better anticipate incoming sensations. It's the brain quietly asking, given what I'm sensing right now, what's the most likely state of the world?
Okay, adjusting the internal map and active inference.
Active inference is about issuing motor commands or intervening in the environment to reshape your sensory inputs so they better match your prior expectations. It's the brain asking, if I want to confirm my predictions or make the world match my predictions, what should I do?
So it's changing the world to fit the map, or changing the map to fit the world.
Exactly. It's like a sculptor who is perpetually refining their mental image of the masterpiece they want to create. That's perceptual inference, updating the internal model, maybe realizing the nose needs to be shorter or the chin sharper.
Right.
And at the exact same time, they're chipping away at the stone, shaping the physical sculpture to match that evolving image that's active inference, issuing the precise motor commands to make the physical sculpture align with their current evolving internal prediction.
It's this continuous self-correcting cycle, keeping sensory data within the prediction envelope, minimizing surprise, making the world feel coherent and predictable.
That's the core loop. But we need to clarify something about the term free energy itself, because it can cause a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Sounds like physics.
It has deep historical roots in thermodynamics. Scientists like Helmholtz and Gibbs, way back, developed the concept of thermodynamic free energy to quantify the portion of energy in a system that's available to perform useful work.
Energy that's free to do work, not free as in unlimited.
Exactly. Karl Friston, a key developer of the FEP, borrowed this term precisely because his mathematical construction also involves a quantity to be reduced, a gradient descent, a drive downhill towards a minimum.
Okay, so just to be absolutely crystal clear for everyone listening, this is not about unlimited electricity or some kind of perpetual motion machine, right? Not free power.
No, definitely not. We're talking about an information theoretic cost, a measure of discrepancy, of mismatch, not generating free power in the traditional sense.
Got it. Information costs.
Yeah. The crucial distinction is that variational free energy, in the FEP context, measures how far observations deviate from expectations. It's an information cost, measured in units like nats or bits. Think of them like information units.
Not joules like in physics.
Right. Unlike chemical free energy, which is measured in joules, the unit of energy. Both principles involve minimizing downhill along a gradient, but they operate in vastly different domains. One in heat and physical work, the other in probability and information.
Okay.
It helps to recall Claude Shannon's insight. Information and surprise are two sides of the same coin. Improbable events carry more information, more unexpected data. The FEP effectively repackages surprise into this tractable objective function that systems can continually drive down through perception and action, making the world, from their perspective, less surprising.
Okay, that helps clarify the free energy part. Now, you mentioned something earlier, a Markov blanket. Sounds very technical.
It does sound technical, but it's actually a profoundly elegant idea. It helps mathematically define what a system is and, crucially, how it maintains its distinct identity in a chaotic world. It's kind of the unsung hero here.
The unsung hero. Okay, tell me about Markov blankets.
So, in probability theory, a Markov blanket of a set of states is the minimal collection of variables that effectively shield those states from the rest of the system.
Shield them. Like a barrier.
Yeah, imagine a fortress. Its Markov blanket would be its gates, its walls, its drawbridges, its sentinels, everything that regulates what comes in and what goes out. In living systems, this blanket corresponds directly to the sensory and active states right at the system's boundary.
Sensory and active states, so the inputs and outputs.
Exactly. The receptors, the ways information gets in, and the effectors, the ways the system actively interacts with and changes its environment.
So think of it as your system's interface with the world, the only way information gets in or out. The gatekeeper, where inside meets outside.
Precisely. And this brings us to a truly fascinating point from Dr. Ramstead again. He emphasizes that the very distinction of this is me versus that is not me, our fundamental sense of self, how we perceive distinct objects, arises directly from the presence of a Markov blanket.
Wow, our sense of self comes from this mathematical boundary.
In a way, yes. Objects, whether they're cells, animals, or even rocks, interact through their blankets. The internal information of a system largely remains hidden, like the workings inside a computer. And crucially, outside states can only influence the internal states via the blanket. This boundary condition, the selective interface, is what makes any system with such an interface a prime candidate for free energy minimization. It's what gives a system its objecthood, its distinct existence.
And there's a powerful consequence of this. You mentioned something, conditional independence.
Yes, exactly. A powerful, almost miraculous consequence. Conditional independence. Given the blanket states, those sensory inputs and active outputs, the internal states and the external states no longer directly influence each other.
Okay, what does that mean practically?
It means that to understand what's happening inside a system, you theoretically only need to know what's happening at its sensory and active boundary. You don't need to know the entire state of the universe outside, or every detail inside. This creates a kind of modularity. It simplifies analysis immensely.
Modularity, like building blocks.
Sort of, and it allows for nested blankets. Think of the human body again. Individual cells have their own Markov blankets,
Right.
but they are nested within organs, which have their own blankets,
Okay.
which are nested within the body, which has its own grand blanket of skin, sensory organs, motor systems. Each level operates with its own Markov blanket, playing the free energy game at its own scale. Yet they can still cooperate and coordinate effectively through these nested interfaces.
So what does this all mean for us? It means even though you're made of trillions of cells, and each cell is its own little FEP minimizing thing, they can still work together in incredible harmony, maintaining their boundaries while coordinating through these blankets.
That's the idea. It's a beautifully nested system of surprise minimization, a symphony of predictions and actions playing out at every scale imaginable, all enabled by these boundaries.
Okay, my mind is slightly blown. But let's try to make it less abstract. To really cement these ideas, let's bring it back down to earth, into everyday life. You mentioned analogies earlier.
Yes, let's do that. Imagine these incredibly complex calculations playing out silently, constantly, in the background of your existence. This is where our Radiolab style analogies can really help, revealing the FET in unexpected places.
Good. Let's find the FEP in the wild.
That's right. We're going to look at 3 concrete systems you encounter all the time, systems you probably never thought of as miniature FEP machines, but they are.
Okay, I'm ready. What's the first one?
Let's start with something almost everyone deals with, maybe with a groan. Your monthly budget.
Ah, the budget. Yes, definitely familiar. How is that FEP?
Your personal budget is a fantastic everyday analogy for a generative model of your financial life. It's your internal belief, your expectation about how your money should flow each month. Income, rent, food, savings, fun money.
Right, my plan, my prediction.
Exactly. Now imagine an unplanned expense suddenly pops up. A flat tire, an emergency vet visit, a surprise medical bill.
Ugh, yeah, hate those.
That unexpected cost causes a significant surprise, a financial free energy spike in your carefully constructed model. Your brain immediately registers, uh-oh, this wasn't supposed to happen.
Okay, surprise spike, then what?
To minimize that surprise and bring your financial books back into balance, you automatically engage in those 2 types of inference, just like the FEP describes. You can do perceptual inference by updating your internal model. Okay, I need to adjust my future expectations. Maybe budget more for car stuff next month or build a bigger emergency fund. That's refining your internal financial map.
Right, learning from the surprise.
Or you can engage in active inference by acting on the world to reduce the current discrepancy. I need to cut back on dining out this month, or I'll pick up some extra freelance work to cover this.
Changing things to match the original plan.
Exactly. Over time, these continuous cycles of belief updating and corrective action keep your finances stable, predictable, and reduce the frequency and intensity of those stressful financial surprises.
So my bank account isn't just a number. It's this dynamic feedback loop striving for financial silence. No surprises. My brain running silent calculations to match statements to predictions.
Precisely. Okay, analogy number 2, modern noise-canceling headphones. Many of us love these for creating pockets of calm.
Oh yeah, lifesavers on planes.
They are brilliant, everyday examples of sensory motor loops in action, tirelessly minimizing surprise. The headphones have an internal model of silence. That's their core expectation.
Their goal still.
Right. They continuously sample external sound waves through their microphones. That's their perception. When incoming noise, the drone of an engine, chatter, office clatter, deviates significantly from that internal model of silence, it registers as a prediction error, an acoustic free energy spike.
This is not quiet.
Exactly. The system effectively thinks that. What do the headphones do then? They quickly engage in active inference by generating an inverted waveform, an anti-sound, that cancels out the disturbance.
The anti-sound.
This rapid sense predict X cycle is a perfect microcosm of active inference. The device is literally reshaping its sensory environment to match its expectations, minimizing surprise in real time, making the world quiet for you.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, what feels like simple, effortless silence is actually this constant active process. The device constantly asking, is this quiet? No. Then I must make it quiet.
It's an active, continuous, incredibly fast process. A tiny, dedicated surprise minimizer working for you.
Okay, that's cool. What's the third analogy?
For our final one, let's look at perhaps the simplest FEP machine you might have at home. A thermostat-controlled heating system.
The thermostat, okay.
It perfectly illustrates the Markov blanket logic in its barest form. The temperature sensor provides the sensory input, the current room temperature. The set point you dial in, say 22 degrees Celsius, is the system's clear prior expectation.
What the temperature should be.
Right. If the room temperature deviates from that set point, there's a discrepancy, a prediction error, a temperature surprise. The heater, AC, then acts to minimize that discrepancy. If it's too cold,
Heater turns on. Active inference.
exactly, warms the room to match the expectation. If it's too hot,
AC kicks in, cools it down.
also active inference. The thermostat steadily drives the room temperature towards its expectation by minimizing a free energy proxy, that temperature error, through simple on-off actions. It's a continuous quest for optimal, low surprise temperature.
It's like a tiny cybernetic governor, always adjusting to keep things just right, just like the one on the wall.
So the next time you use noise-canceling earbuds or adjust your thermostat, just pause for a moment. Appreciate the hidden computation. What feels like simple silence or comfort is the outcome of countless inference loops, each reducing surprise. Whether it's finance, electronics, or heating, free energy minimization is the quiet architect of stability and adaptability. It's happening all around us.
That really helps make it concrete. But the FEP isn't just for explaining thermostats and headphones, right? You mentioned practical implications in bigger areas.
Oh, absolutely. The FEP is far from just an academic curiosity. It has profound, felt, and incredibly practical implications reaching into nearly every aspect of life. It's seeded advances and sharper insights across numerous fields.
Okay, like where?
Take neuroscience and mental health. The FEP offers this powerful unifying insight. Our brains are essentially hierarchical prediction machines, constantly trying to predict the next sensory input.
Prediction machines.
Okay. And many mental disorders think persistent anxiety, phobias, maybe even aspects of psychosis can be viewed through the FEP lens as involving maladaptive precision assignments on prediction errors.
Maladaptive precision. What does that mean?
It means the brain either pays too much attention to unexpected inputs, treating every small deviation as a potential catastrophe.
You're reacting to surprise.
Or it becomes too rigid in its internal models, unable to update its beliefs even when faced with contradictory evidence.
Underreacting, refusing to learn.
Both scenarios lead to a constant, exhausting state of surprise or perceived threat.
So imagine chronic anxiety, not just as a feeling, but as this runaway free energy spike. The brain constantly overwhelmed because the world feels relentlessly unpredictable, too threatening, relative to its rigid or hypersensitive expectations. A system trapped in perceived surprise.
Precisely. And the beauty here is that many modern therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, exposure therapy, mindfulness, even emerging psychedelic-assisted therapies can all be powerfully reinterpreted and potentially optimized through this FEP lens.
How so? How do they fit?
They are, in essence, methods for recalibrating these precision weights. CBT, for instance, systematically introduces tolerable surprises, carefully controlled, safe exposures to feared situations or challenging, distorted thoughts.
Gently forcing the brain to confront the mismatch.
Exactly. It helps the brain relearn that unexpected outcomes aren't catastrophic or that certain thoughts aren't accurate predictors of danger. As uncertainty tolerance grows, free energy falls and anxiety can genuinely fade. It's like retuning the brain's alarm system.
Okay, that's a powerful perspective on therapy. What about other fields? Robotics.
Yes, robotics and AI is another huge area. Traditional robots often relied heavily on precise, pre-programmed maps and rigid calibration. They struggled immensely in dynamic, unpredictable environments. Brilliant at following orders, terrible at adapting.
Right, easily thrown off.
In stark contrast, robots equipped with active inference models based directly on the FEP can continually minimize free energy by constantly updating their internal generative models whenever their sensors deviate from expectations. This yields machines that are far more resilient, intelligent, and adaptable in the real world.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think of a prototype drone navigating a collapsed building for search and rescue. Instead of needing a perfect map beforehand, it can constantly update its internal model of the environment as it flies, even if things shift. It uses sensors to predict what it should see next based on its current map, and if there's a surprise like unexpected rubble, it updates its map and adjusts its flight path in real time.
Adapting on the fly.
Or think about legged robots. If one stumbles on uneven terrain, it can quickly recover by rerunning its internal body model and adjusting its limb movements to minimize the surprise of unexpected ground contact or balance issues.
So forget pre-programmed robots just following instructions.
Yeah.
These FEP-driven machines are inferring, learning, adjusting to the chaos. It's a whole new level of intelligence, much more resilient.
It really is. They are truly living up to the promise of adaptable AI.
Okay, what about something more personal? You mentioned productivity.
Yes, personal productivity and habit formation. The FEP gives us a fresh way to understand why habits are so incredibly powerful. Habits are, at their core, low surprise policies.
Oh, surprise policies.
They are well-practiced routines that reliably yield expected results, thereby minimizing the free energy associated with constant decision-making and unexpected outcomes. When you perform a habit, your brain's prediction is perfectly matched by your action and its result. Minimal surprise. Effortless.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does that help practically?
This has a direct, everyday payoff for you. Think about how you design your environment to cue desired behaviors. If your morning routine is to make coffee and your favorite mug is already by the kettle,
Makes it easy, no friction.
right, the whole sequence feels effortless. Your brain expects coffee, the sensory setup matches the expectations, surprise is minimal. But remove the mug, put it in a different cupboard.
Instant surprise spike. Where's my mug? Scrap around.
Yeah, exactly. That tiny deviation creates mental friction, raises free energy. So by proactively designing your environment and routine's phone on Do Not Disturb, workout clothes laid out, you are literally creating cues that lower surprise and make the desired routine the path of least resistance.
You're minimizing your brain's free energy, making good habits easy, reducing decision fatigue. It's environmental engineering for your brain.
You got it. And finally, even in organizational design and corporate strategy, the FEP offers compelling insights. Companies, whether they realize it or not, embed their market expectations in forecasts, sales projections, KPIs.
They're corporate generative models.
Right. And when a company persistently experiences earnings surprise, profits, or market share fall significantly outside expected ranges, it signals a profound model reality mismatch, a corporate free energy spike.
The collective brain of the company is surprised.
Yes. Leadership teams then instinctively act to minimize the surprise. They can update their forecast model, revise their strategy, admit market assumptions were wrong. That's perceptual inference.
Updating the corporate belief system.
Or they can alter execution and operations, cut costs, launch new products, realign departments. That's active inference.
Changing actions to meet the old goal or a new one.
Treating business metrics this way provides a surprising mathematical rigor to strategic pivots, moving them beyond just gut feeling to a principled response to unexpected reality.
So when a company misses its quarterly earnings, it's not just a bad number, it's a corporate surprise deviating from the generative model. The FEP gives a framework for those strategic pivots. It's the collective brain trying to make sense of its environment.
It provides a language and a logic for it, yes.
Wow, okay. This principle is so incredibly broad and frankly still a bit mind-bending. I bet it sparks a lot of questions. Can we tackle some common ones? Maybe clear up misconceptions?
Absolutely. Let's do a quick fire round. What's a common one you hear?
Okay, first, is the FEP a physical law, like Newton's laws? Does it have that same kind of fundamental status?
Great question. And the answer is crucial. It's not a physical law in that sense. It's a mathematical identity, basically, a tautology, something true by definition, given the existence of boundaries, of Markov blankets. You can't really falsify calculus itself, right? But you can test specific scientific models that are built using the FEP framework. It provides a way to generate testable hypotheses about how systems behave, not a direct physical description of forces itself.
So it's more like a powerful mathematical lens, not an unbreakable Physical force.
No.
Okay. Next question. Does it only apply to brains? It sounds so much like cognition.
No, absolutely not. While a lot of its development was in computational neuroscience, the principle is proposed to be far broader. Any system with a well-defined Markov blanket cells, ant colonies, climate models, corporations, as we discussed, can, in principle, be analyzed using FE.
So the real question is, does it apply?
But does applying it give us useful, novel, testable insights for this particular system that other frameworks miss? It's a tool for understanding.
Got it. Okay. Third, we keep using this term free energy. Is FEP free energy the same as Gibbs free energy from chemistry class? The one about spontaneous reactions?
They share a strikingly similar mathematical structure, that core concept of minimization, which is why Friston chose the name. But they differ significantly in units and domain. Chemical free energy, Gibbs, is about usable thermal energy for work, measured in joules.
Energy units.
Variational free energy in FEP is an information theoretic quantity, about the mismatch between observations and expectations, measured in nats or bits.
Information units, okay. Analogous structure, different domains. Good distinction.
One is about energy, the other about information and probability.
Okay, last quick fire question. It's a natural one. If systems are always trying to minimize surprise, won't that make them, well, dull, predictable, risk-averse? Wouldn't an FEP agent just sit in a dark, quiet room doing nothing to avoid surprising inputs? Sounds boring.
Hey, that's a fantastic and very intuitive question, and the answer is a resounding no, not necessarily. That dark room scenario only happens if the agent's internal models, its priors, demand a completely static, unchanging world.
That's not how life works.
Right. Living systems, especially intelligent ones, often develop what we call high entropy priors. This means their internal models actively expect and even crave novelty, new sensory stimulation, unpredictable outcomes that promise learning.
So they expect to be surprised, in a way.
They expect a certain amount of unpredictable information flow. For such an agent, chasing stimulation, exploring unknown environments, engaging in complex learning actually becomes the lowest surprise policy. The lack of novelty would be surprising to them.
So curiosity itself could be a way to minimize surprise if your model predicts an interesting world.
Exactly. It's not about avoiding all surprise, but about managing it in a way that leads to growth and better understanding. An FEP agent can be incredibly adaptive and exploratory.
Okay, that clears up a lot. To really bring this all together, maybe we can slow down again. Walk through one example in super detail, like bullet time.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's watch a detailed FEP cycle play out in a very ordinary perception and action. Your morning tea ritual.
My tea again. Okay, let's observe my mind's inner workings. Step 1.
1. Baseline belief. You wake up, maybe a bit groggy. Your brain immediately activates its well-established generative model for morning tea. You expect it to taste warm and lightly sweet, just like usual. That's your strong prior expectation.
Got it. Expecting warm tea. 2. Sensory input. I prepare it, bring the mug to my lips, take a sip, but instead of warmth, I feel a sharp, icy chill. That's the new unexpected sensory data.
3. Prediction error. Immediately, a visceral surprise spikes. The actual sensation, the coldness, deviates significantly from your warm tea prior. Your internal model is violated. That's the free energy registering as a jolt of cognitive dissonance. This isn't right.
Right, my brain goes, whoa! 4. Model update. Driven to minimize this surprise, my brain quickly scrambles hypotheses. Did I grab the iced tea from last night? Is the kettle broken? Did someone prank me? As I quickly settle on the most plausible guess, I grabbed the wrong cup, the free energy from the initial surprise starts to fall. My internal model is updating, reestablishing coherence.
5. Action. Then you perform active inference. You don't just seek their surprised. You put down the cold mug, purposefully pick up the hot, steamy one, take another sip. The new sensation now perfectly matches your warm tea prior. This confirms your updated model and your corrective action. Surprise and free energy fall to baseline. Discrepancy resolved.
Relief.
Yeah.
6. Learning. Finally, a small update is encoded. Next time, double check the cup before sipping. This refined model reduces future surprises, makes tomorrow's tea ritual smoother.
Notice that beautiful interplay. Perception and action jointly navigate the same free energy landscape. Both are movements downhill, either in belief space, updating hypotheses, or in sensory space, changing the world. Two sides of the same coin, relentlessly minimizing surprise.
This all sounds incredibly clever, like living systems are doing magic, defying the second law. But you said earlier the second law still holds. How does it reappear here? Are we exporting entropy or something?
We are, absolutely. Far from breaking the second law, the FEP shows how self-organizing systems adhere to it cleverly. Every open system minimizing free energy internally is, in effect, exporting its entropy to the environment.
Like the refrigerator example. Keeps food cold inside.
By pumping heat, a form of entropy, out into the kitchen. Exactly.
Yeah.
The fridge reduces its internal entropy, but it does so by consuming electricity and increasing the entropy of the kitchen. The total entropy of system plus environment still inexorably increases.
So the universe as a whole still gets more disordered.
Yes. The FEP shows how self-organizing systems resist internal entropic drift by cleverly cycling work and disorder through these bounded inference loops, continually pushing disorder outside their boundaries. It's not magic, it's sophisticated energy and information management, fully consistent with thermodynamics.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening right now? How can you actually apply this powerful principle in your own daily life? Let's try a practical, personal FEP workshop, like a mental workout.
Yeah, let's make it actionable. Where does someone start?
Step 1, track surprises. Maybe carry a small journal or use a notes app. Whenever something unexpected derails you, missed email, social misstep, sudden deadline panic, jot down what happened. You're consciously logging your free energy spikes.
Step 2, diagnose the source. Once you spot a surprise, don't just dwell on it. Ask, was my model wrong? Did I have bad info, a faulty assumption? Did I just expect the wrong thing? Or was my action inadequate? Did I not follow through? Did I procrastinate, run out of time? Pinpoint the root cause, belief, or execution.
Step 3, choose your intervention. Based on that diagnosis, decide your next move to minimize future surprise. If the model was wrong, perceptual inference. Update your belief, get better info, question the assumption. If action was inadequate, active inference. Plan to act differently next time, earlier alarm, smaller steps, delegate.
Step 4, calibrate your boundaries. This is about your Markov blanket, your interface. Ensure your sensory channels, how you check info, your alerts, your listening skills are reliable. And ensure your actuators, your autonomy, resources, skills, willpower can effectively change outcomes to match expectations. Like adjusting email notification sensory or setting aside specific email time actuator.
Consistently iterating this loop track, diagnose, intervene, calibrate turns life into a continuous free energy workshop. You gradually smooth out the wrinkles, minimize your own internal surprises. It leads to a life feeling more predictable, more in control, less anxious. It's a tool for growth.
It really can be. A way to actively shape your experience.
Okay, let's wrap up with the biggest takeaways from this deep dive. First, the second law. Closed systems drift to maximum entropy disorder. Gradients flatten.
The inevitable slide.
Second, boundaries, defined by Markov blankets. They enable open systems to resist entropy locally, maintaining that inside-outside distinction.
The key enabler.
Third, the free energy principle. Boundary-bearing systems must behave to minimize variational free energy, that upper bound on surprise.
The core assertion.
Fourth, active inference, the engine driving this, that continuous cycle of updating beliefs, perception, or acting on the world, action, to match expectations.
The how-tos.
And finally, the incredible practical resonance. This single logic explains or guides stuff from mental health to self-driving cars, habits to corporate strategy. It's everywhere.
It has astonishing reach. And if you remember nothing else, maybe hold on to Dr. Ramsted's luminous summary of what happens at a boundary. I can't mix into you, so the next best thing I can do is become like you statistically.
That's statistical mirroring.
That insight, that pattern matching at boundaries, lies at the root of self-organization, intelligence, even self, is the beating heart of the FEP. It invites you to see the world and yourself through a whole new lens, revealing this hidden, unifying logic.
So the next time you feel that surge of anxiety or frustration, remember, your brain is battling a surprise spike, a mismatch, or when you finally get a new concept, that aha moment. That's your internal model updating, surprise falling. You are living, breathing proof of the free energy principle in constant, beautiful action. It's truly mind-bending how one idea can explain so much, isn't it? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.